at that moment, God decided to give him a second chance.
Real life often proves to be stranger, funnier, or more terrifying than fiction. Imagine the eccentric characters in mob movies. Now picture Jimi Hendrix, Jackie Chan, Sean Connery, and numerous other celebrities facing off against ruthless gangland Kayers. Let's delve into how these famous individuals navigated encounters with the world's most notorious criminal organizations. 50 Cent. On May 24, 2000, Curtis Jackson rose to fame under the stage name 50 Cent, a moniker derived from a life-altering event in his grandmother's neighborhood. Stationed outside his grandma's house in South Jamaica, Queens, New York, Curtis became the target of a drive-by shooting. As he stood by his grandmother's side, who was innocently planting flowers in the yard, he ventured over to his car to retrieve something, unwittingly stepping into a moment that would define his path to stardom.
The car pulled up. On the side of us, a guy got out the passenger seat of that car, came around behind it, and shot through the actual car.
Unexpectedly, a car pulled up behind him, and a gunman emerged from the passenger side, firing a staggering 59 shots. The brutal attack left Curtis with gunshot wounds on his hand, arm, hips, legs, chest, and even face. Plunged into critical condition, he underwent multiple surgeries to salvage his life. The incident catapulted into headlines, shocking many who could not fathom that a successful artist like 50 Cent had become the target of such extreme violence. The motives behind the shooting remained unclear, giving rise to various speculations and fueling public curiosity.
When I put the gun out the actual window, he shot down at my hand and moved away. So I got hit my thumb and came out the top of my pinky.
Divergent theories circulated about the motive behind the attack. Some speculated it was connected to his alleged involvement in the drug trade, while others believed it stemmed from a personal dispute. As time unfolded, the truth began to surface. It was disclosed that Curtis had become a target due to a song he had penned, wherein he openly dissed the notorious kingpin Kenneth Supreme McGriff. For those unfamiliar with Kenneth Supreme McGriff, he was associated with the notorious Supreme Team Gang, known for orchestrating a significant drug network and numerous murders in New York. While 50 Cent refrained from personally retaliating after the attack, he later disclosed that the man behind the trigger was Dural Homo Bomb Bun, one of Mike Tyson's closest friends. Remarkably, 3 weeks following the incident involving 50 Cent, Bun fell victim to a fatal shooting in a gang-related attack. One of his fans wrote, "Curtis 50 Cent Jackson did not become famous under the stage name 50 Cent after experiencing a life-altering event that happened at his grandmother's house in Jamaica, Queens, New York. 50 Cent was already going by the name 50 Cent when he was shot at 9 times, not shot at 59 times." Jackie Chan.
又唔夠，你夠唔夠人黑手黨嘅？你又唔按照呢個規矩做又唔係做大嘢喎，係打人兩巴啊，打人架車啊，一有事啊。
The legendary Chinese actor, renowned for his on-screen battles against villains, surprisingly found himself confronting real-life adversaries. These were not just ordinary antagonists. They were members of the Chinese criminal syndicate, the Triad.
When they in Hong Kong, they already a Triad, Sun Yee-on's member. So after they come to the United States, they still have a connection with Hong Kong Triad.
While they might not wield the same power as Japan's Yakuza, they are equally perilous and known for their extreme ruthlessness in various criminal operations. Originating from Hong Kong, the Triad is involved in a wide spectrum of crimes, including drug tea and human tea. However, their first encounter with Jackie Chan occurred when they infiltrated the Chinese movie industry. In contrast to the Yakuza or other mafia groups that often support the film industry in their home countries, the Triad took an opposing stance.
My name is Jimmy Su. I have a nickname as Big Head. I'm a former member in Tung Wong. They're from Hong Kong.
During the 1970s, when Jackie Chan was emerging as a breakout star in China with blockbuster movies like Fist of Fury and Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, the Triad posed a significant threat to the Chinese movie industry. They demanded exorbitant sums of money from producers and production companies while on set. In tense situations, they went as far as destroying entire sets if their financial demands were not met, creating a challenging environment for filmmakers and actors alike. Despite these challenges, Jackie Chan's talent and popularity solidified his status as a household name in Hong Kong. At this juncture, Jackie Chan had become a sought-after star, with numerous filmmakers eager to cast him in their movies. Among the prominent Chinese producers vying for his talent were Lo Wei and Willie Chan. While Jackie had previously worked in films produced by both individuals, he made a significant career move in the early 80s by leaving Lo Wei to align with Willie Chan. This decision infuriated Lo Wei to the extent that he resorted to sending members of the triad to physically attack Jackie.
Parts of action, there's no violence, no sex, no make love scene, no dirty words, no dirty violence.
Initially, Jackie Chan attempted to address their hostile behavior towards actors in the movie industry by speaking out to the press. However, he soon realized that they also held influence over the media. Faced with a seemingly unwinnable battle, Jackie decided to leave China for Hollywood, expanding his fame on an international scale. Despite this move, the triad didn't let him off easily. On one occasion, when Jackie returned to China for a movie production, they ambushed him before he could even step off the plane.
I try to fit every market. Later on, becoming, we know around about this. So this is why in my movie you can see there's a lot of action.
Fortunately, Jackie Chan managed to escape physical harm during these attacks, but the threats persisted. They continued sending warnings and orchestrating smaller assaults until Jackie reached a breaking point. In response, he decided to take matters into his own hands, arming himself with guns and grenades whenever he was in Hong Kong, ready for any potential attack. On one occasion, during a dinner, 20 members of the triad ambushed him. Armed with 3 guns that day, a confrontation ensued, and while the exact details remain unknown, the aftermath saw triad members checking into the Hong Kong hospital, revealing the intensity of the altercation. Following these tumultuous events, they succeeded in significantly impacting the movie scene in Hong Kong, steering it towards adult content. Despite their efforts, Jackie Chan transcended these challenges and went on to become one of the biggest actors in Hollywood, Jimi Hendrix. In 1969, the renowned American guitarist Jimi Hendrix found himself entangled in one of the most bizarre kidnapping incidents. At the center of this ordeal was John Roberts, a man involved in distributing for the Medellin cartel in the United States, and with connections to the mafia. On a particular night, a gathering of celebrities, including Hendrix, convened at a club where he was performing.
It was 20 years ago today.
Following the show, Roberts and his associates spiked nearly every drink with Quaaludes, leaving several attendees in a euphoric haze. Jimmy, not one to shy away, wanted to elevate the experience by seeking out more drugs to inject. This pursuit led him to encounter 2 low-level dealers who saw an opportunity and seized it by kidnapping him. Hendrix, already under the influence, was oblivious to the unfolding situation. The 2 individuals lured him out of the club, promising to share some and led him far away to their apartment.
I'm pretty tired. I've been recording so much,
You're tired now?
Yeah, I haven't had a sleep in about all night. I've been working on.
However, the kidnappers made a critical error in their approach. Rather than demanding a ransom, they insisted on obtaining Jimi Hendrix's contract from his manager, Michael Jeffrey, as a condition for his release. This unconventional demand puzzled many, as it deviated from the typical motivations behind kidnappings. Once it became evident that Jimmy was missing, the matter was reported to the club owner, John Roberts, adding another layer of complexity to the unfolding situation. Roberts leveraged his substantial connections within the narcotics underworld to track down the individuals involved. He successfully located them and orchestrated Jimmy's release. However, our narrative does not conclude at this point. Hendrix remained unaware of his whereabouts throughout the entire weekend, utterly clueless. The group he was with continuously supplied him with D, ensuring he maintained a perilously elevated state of intoxication, persisting until he reached a disastrous level of heightened influence.
How much sleep do you need to be alert?
Alert? I guess about 8.
8 hours?
Yeah, I had about 8 minutes, so.
Following Jimmy's release, these individuals were subjected to a brutal beating, with speculation circulating about Roberts potentially orchestrating the kidnapping. On the other hand, some sources attribute the initiative to Michael Jeffrey, his manager, who seemingly wanted to play the role of a good Samaritan. Regardless of which account holds the truth, the situation remains incredulous when considering how Hendrix spent the entire ordeal in blissful ignorance, completely unaware of the unfolding events.
I asked a practical question and got a philosophical answer.
Is that philosophical?
I thought it was. You said,
The mainstream media remained oblivious to this revelation until 2011, when Roberts first brought it to light. This unveiling significantly heightened the intrigue surrounding the episode, making it one of the most captivating incidents in the singer's life. Moreover, it stands out as a potentially entertaining abduction, distinguishing itself on the list of famous kidnappings. If you've ever tuned in to TV shows like Hell's Kitchen or Kitchen Nightmares, you're likely familiar with celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay, renowned for his sharp tongue and high culinary standards. Ramsay has earned a reputation that commands respect. However, not everyone was well versed in the legend of Gordon Ramsay, and one such group was the Taiwanese shark fin smuggling organization that confronted the TV host.
God, look, I cannot believe it. There's literally thousands of shark fins.
During the filming of a documentary in Costa Rica, Ramsay traveled to South America to capture segments for a documentary dedicated to the controversial and harmful practice of shark finning. For those unfamiliar, shark finning is the cruel practice of cutting a live shark's fin and tossing the animal back into the ocean to ensure a slow and painful death. The motivation behind this inhumane act is the lucrative trade of shark fins, which fetch significant sums of money. In a bizarre turn of events, Ramsay found himself caught in the midst of shooting his documentary and running for his life.
It smells like petrol.
What did he just do?
He's just throwing some from the top of the roof over.
With shark fin soup fetching over $100 per plate, the illegal practice of shark finning led these gangs to dry thousands upon thousands of shark fins on the roofs of various buildings to avoid government detection.
There must be thousands of them here. Fans on the top, almost like they're air drying a grape to make the most amazing wine.
While documenting this illicit operation, Ramsay managed to climb to the top of one of these buildings, capturing the activity on camera. However, upon descending, he encountered a group of thugs who, seemingly bored, poured gasoline over his body from another rooftop, escalating the danger of the situation.
Hey. Smells like petrol.
Undeterred and determined to expose more of this illegal operation, Ramsay and his camera crew made a second attempt. However, this time they were met with armed men who held them at gunpoint. Fortunately, local law enforcement intervened, responding to a call from disturbed neighbors. The officers instructed Ramsay and his team to leave the country immediately. One can only imagine the potentially horrific consequences they might have faced if the police hadn't arrived in time. Al Sharpton, a prominent American civil rights and social justice activist, took an unexpected turn into the high-stakes world of organized crime. Despite his respected political career and a 2004 run for the Democratic presidential nomination, he surprised many by becoming an FBI informant. While this may seem like a lot of information to digest, trust the process. Everything will become clear shortly. Now the question arises, how does a prospective presidential candidate end up becoming an informant?
I was never told I was an informant with a number. So in my own mind, I was not an informant.
The story begins in the 1980s when Sharpton was making his way up in the world of politics. During this time, he was associated with several street gangs and prominent crime families in New York, including the ruthless Genovese crime family. Engaged in various criminal activities, one notable incident involved an unsuccessful attempt to extort funds from the Jacksons during their Pride Patrol tour.
Al Sharpton at the time, he was a gun for hire, you know. We needed him to do some things with his own people, which he called them at the time. We hired him to do it.
Following this failed operation, Sharpton received a threatening call from a mysterious man named Sal who vowed to K him. This threat added to the mounting pressure on Sharpton, who was already under investigation for his connections to the Gambino and Genovese crime families. At this juncture, it became apparent that Al Sharpton had consistently been one step ahead. Recognizing the imminent danger, he swiftly turned to the FBI, striking a deal for his freedom. In exchange for his cooperation, the FBI initiated an investigative operation known as CI7, which stands for Confidential Informant Number 7.
He was valuable in the music business. We'd send Al out to meet with the act that he wanted to book, and Al would bring him to us.
Under this operation, Sharpton played a crucial role in dismantling multiple members of the Genovese crime family, one of America's largest and most perilous mafia circles at the time. His collaboration with the FBI marked a surprising twist in his journey, showcasing a side of Sharpton that many had not anticipated.
That's how we used him. So I know Al very well.
Additionally, Sharpton went a step further by befriending several high-ranking members of the mafia and recording their conversations using a bugged briefcase. This covert operation proved to be successful with the information he provided. The FBI was able to dismantle 2 Genovese family social clubs, including Gant's Greenwich Village headquarters. Furthermore, 3 automobiles used by crime family leaders were seized, along with more than a dozen phone lines. Sharpton's collaboration played a crucial role in significantly disrupting the operations of the Genovese crime family. The intriguing twist in this story lies in the fact that Al Sharpton never openly admitted to his involvement with the FBI, nor did he explicitly deny it. The extent of what he revealed to the FBI remains an open mystery, as does the question of how he managed to ascend so high in the ranks of politics despite his complex past with organized crime. Sharpton's role as a confidential informant adds an enigmatic layer to his multifaceted journey, leaving certain aspects of his collaboration shrouded in mystery. The Rolling Stones. There are 2 sides to this story, both involving the infamous Hells Angels motorcycle gang. One narrative centers around the K of a Rolling Stones fan by the Hells Angels, while the other revolves around the gang's attempt to assassinate a member of the band, Mick Jagger.
Stinks.
No, they would say it's a terrific record. I think it's a terrific record.
Stinks.
On December 6, 1969, the rock band The Rolling Stones hosted a concert at the Altamont Speedway in Northern California. For security, they hired the Hells Angels at the cost of $500 and a case of beer. For those unfamiliar, the Hells Angels are widely known as an international outlaw motorcycle club, a euphemistic way of acknowledging their status as one of the most notorious crime syndicates. On this fateful day, the Hells Angels had initially agreed to prevent members of the audience from getting onto the stage. However, as these angels consumed their beer and became intoxicated, the crowd grew restless and unpredictable, a common occurrence at concerts. The situation escalated when the Rolling Stones finally took the stage to perform, and the atmosphere became chaotic with numerous fights breaking out between the gang members and the audience. Amidst this turmoil, a teenager named Meredith Hunter jumped on stage and climbed onto the speakers. 2 Hells Angels immediately threw him back into the crowd. Quote, "I ain't no cop," Hells Angels Sonny Barger said. Quote, "I just went there to sit on the front of the stage and drink beer and have a good time like we was told. But when they started kicking our bikes, man, that started it. I ain't no peace creep, man, but if a cat don't want to fight me, I want to be his friend." However, undeterred, Hunter climbed back on stage, this time with a gun in his hand. Under the influence of impairing his rational thinking, he raised the gun into the air and fired a single shot. In response, an angel named Alan Pissarro swiftly drew his knife, disarmed Hunter, and subdued the teen by stabbing him.
I want him out of the way, man. I don't like unity.
Tragically, the incident resulted in Meredith Hunter's death, and Pissarro was subsequently arrested and charged with murder. Fortunately, he was acquitted on the basis of self-defense. However, this was just one side of the story. After Mick got out of the venue and eventually made it home, he recalled the event with a heavy dose of trepidation. "It was just completely barbaric. Like there was so much aggression there, it completely took the enjoyment out of it for me," he said. "It was impossible to enjoy the music or anything because most of the atrocities were going on right in front of the stage, right in front of our eyes." He added, "The Hells Angels had a lot to do with it. I got the impression that because they were a security force, they were using it as an excuse. Perhaps the only thing we needed security for was the Hells Angels." Moreover, Rolling Stones frontman Mick Jagger condemned the actions of the Hells Angels gang and expressed his plans to disassociate from the group. This condemnation contributed to a perception of the Hells Angels as an extremely violent group. Feeling the pressure and backlash, the gang decided to take matters into their own hands and plotted to K Jagger. Loading a significant amount of ammunition onto a boat, they set out for Jagger's house on Long Island. However, before reaching their destination, a massive storm capsized their boat and they barely survived, narrowly avoiding drowning in the river leading to Jagger's residence. Following this near-death experience, they abandoned the plan to K Jagger. Interestingly, Jagger himself remained unaware that such an event had even transpired. It was enough to make all the acts try to help out in keeping things cool. Carlos Santana remembers of the experience, quote, I could see a guy from the stage who had a blade and just wanted to get somebody. Anybody getting in the way of anybody had himself a fight, whether he wanted it or not. We tried to stop it the best we could by not playing. But by the time we got to our fourth song, the more we got into it, the more people got into their fighting thing. Meanwhile, Mick Jagger also acted as best as he could. Quote, "There's so many of you. Just keep cool down in front and don't push around." He also asked, "Why are we fighting? Every other scene has been cool." As guitarist Mick Taylor remembered of the event, quote, "We had to keep stopping in the middle of numbers. Jagger did his best to cool the people out. He was doing everything in his power to cool them out. We were speechless for a little while afterwards. We did not enjoy it. I think at one point we might have walked off stage, but that would have been a disaster. We just had to carry on and play the best we could." The real issue at the heart of the tragic events at Altamont was the confusion surrounding the identity of the Hells Angels involved. Although the Rolling Stones had hired them based on the recommendation of the Grateful Dead, who had wisely left before their set, witnessing the violence unfold, there was a crucial misunderstanding. The Rolling Stones had previously utilized a different group called the Hells Angels for their Hyde Park show, but this group could not have been further from the real, notorious motorcycle club.
Why was this?
Well, because it doesn't happen.
White people to play Negro music, so they don't come and see white people, do they?
The Hyde Park Hells Angels were relatively passive, drinking tea and allowing the police to handle security matters. However, at Altamont, with Mick Jagger's insistence on avoiding a police presence, the responsibility fell squarely on the hired Hells Angels. With no higher authority than the bikers, they wielded control over the entire 300,000-strong crowd with an iron fist. This not only resulted in violent altercations, but also gave them unchecked power to seize and money from the audience. The confusion and misjudgment in selecting the Hells Angels for security played a significant role in the disastrous outcome of the Altamont Speedway concert.
We have basic rules that everybody has to live by, and then each charter in its own has its own rules.
The entire event at Altamont was undeniably a disaster. While Mick Jagger staunchly placed blame on the Hells Angels and subsequently faced various attempts from the gang, the real responsibility lay squarely on the shoulders of the organizers. The decision to hire 200 well-known thugs and violent criminals as security for one of the biggest rock concerts of all time proved to be a disastrous choice. It was a tragic day, and one can only hope that such a scenario is never repeated in the future. The Altamont Speedway concert serves as a stark reminder of the critical importance of careful planning and responsible decision-making in organizing large-scale events. Steven Seagal. In recent times, action movie actor Steven Seagal has forced an unexpected friendship with Russian President Vladimir Putin and has been involved in training Serbia's Special Forces police in hand-to-hand combat. However, during the peak of his movie career, the tough guy image he portrayed might have been more of a facade.
This guy is like a 5'2" fat little, male. He was out to crucify me, and he did.
Certainly, Seagal possesses the skills to substantiate his action movie persona, particularly in martial arts. He holds a 7th Dan black belt in Aikido and spent his early adulthood working as a martial arts instructor in Japan before achieving fame on the silver screen. His proficiency in martial arts contributes to the authenticity of the action sequences seen in his movies. While Steven Seagal is recognized for making sound career decisions in the martial arts world, his choices in Hollywood haven't always been as successful. In the year 2000, Steven Seagal experienced a shocking turn of events when he was kidnapped by 2 members of the Italian-American crime family, the Gambinos. These individuals forcibly took him, placed him in their car, and hatched a plan to extort hundreds of thousands of dollars from Seagal.
I want to be able to work on a project that will give people around the world the chance to represent their own people, their own culture, their own stories.
Given Steven Seagal's tough on-screen image, one might assume that dealing with such a situation would be easy for him. However, the reality was quite different. Seagal found himself targeted by the Gambino family due to his associations with a man named Julius Nasso. Julius R. Nasso, one of Seagal's prominent producers, played a pivotal role in creating a series of successful action films in the early 90s, which contributed to maintaining Seagal's stardom. Following Seagal's 1992 film Under Siege, set aboard the USS Missouri, he became the go-to action movie actor. However, it was his relationship with Nasso that ultimately led to a decline in his career. Nasso produced 6 of Seagal's most popular films, including Marked for Death, Fire Down Below, and the sequel to Under Siege, Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. Unfortunately, their once fruitful collaboration soured, with Nasso alleging that Seagal breached a $60 million deal for 4 additional films. Steven Seagal alleged that members of the mob demanded he fork over $150,000 for each film he collaborated with Julius Nasso on, per the Chicago Tribune. Quote, "Look at me when I talk to you," the actor said in court, quoting Anthony Ciccone. "Work with Jules and we'll split the pie." The action star was so terrified during the meeting that he agreed to their terms, but only to buy himself time. If you would have said the wrong thing, they would have K'd you. The producer Julius R. Nasso had connections to one of New York's 5 mafia families and sought the assistance of a Gambino family associate to address the issues with the action movie star. Steven Seagal remained unaware of the mob's pursuit of justice until he was forcibly taken into a car in Brooklyn in 2001. Seagal recounted that the mobsters transported him to a well-known mob restaurant where he was subjected to threats. Contrary to the scenes one might expect from his movies, the actor did not resort to breaking arms or tossing people through windows. Instead, he reportedly handed over at least $700,000 to resolve the situation. This real-life encounter mirrored the intense drama found in Seagal's on-screen roles. During an investigation into mob activities on New York's waterfront, particularly involving Peter Gotti, brother to mafia boss John Gotti, and then head of the Gambino family, investigators were able to substantiate Steven Seagal's claims. Federal wiretaps conducted by the FBI captured mob enforcers joking about extorting Seagal and making references to his movies. They were laughing about it, saying it was right out of the movies and, quote, "If we only had guns in our belts, it would be really good," a lawyer who heard the tapes told the New York Times in 2002. Julius R. Nasso, however, denied the allegations that he was a Gambino family associate. Instead, he claimed that he only wanted the $500,000 Seagal owed him after backing out of their contract deal. Contrary to Nasso's statements, FBI reports and wiretaps revealed a different narrative. The individuals involved in Seagal's kidnappings were some of the Gambino family's most notorious capos and street soldiers, including Richard Bondi, Anthony "Sonny" Ciccone, and Primo Casarino. The investigation shed light on the intricate connections between Hollywood, the mafia, and the real-life drama that unfolded behind the scenes. Speaking to the press after the hearing, Seagal said he only appeared in court because authorities made him. Quote, "In the movies, I play a tough action hero, but I have feelings. I have been a victim twice," he told the media. Facing a dangerous situation, Steven Seagal realized the severity of the circumstances when Primo Casarino and Anthony "Sonny" Ciccone, along with Nasso, visited his Los Angeles home. Instead of resorting to a vendetta or seeking revenge against the Gambino's capos and underboss, a course of action typical of his on-screen characters, Seagal chose a different path. He decided to cooperate with authorities, providing crucial information backed by the FBI wiretaps.
And decided that that was something I wanted to pursue, and got involved in that in my early youth, and then kind of kept trying to.
Sammy Davis Jr. Undeniably one of the most talented and beloved black male entertainers in Hollywood during the 1950s, Sammy Davis Jr.'s status took a turn when he started dating a white woman named Kim Novak. This relationship faced 2 significant challenges. Firstly, being an interracial couple in the societal context of that era in America could come with challenges.
The relationship was so intense between Kim and Sammy that he would ask me to drive him to the house.
Secondly, Novak was under contract to Harry Cohn, a formidable and ruthless manager with ties to the mob. Historical accounts suggest that Cohn had a reputation for sending more individuals to the cemetery than any other mobster in Hollywood. At the time, he wielded considerable influence as the head of Columbia Pictures, and Novak stood as one of his prominent stars. However, despite the challenges they faced, the two met at a party in 1957, fell in love, and embarked on an intimate relationship. Unfortunately, this decision would prove to be one of the worst mistakes in Sammy Davis Jr.'s career. During this period, Davis was enjoying considerable success, earning $25,000 a week at the Sands in Las Vegas. Additionally, he was on the brink of breaking into television as one of the medium's pioneering black actors set to appear in a dramatic role.
Called each other every night and certainly asked me over the telephone would I like to get married.
Adding to the complexities of Sammy Davis Jr.'s life, he had lost an eye 3 years prior in a severe motor accident. However, upon meeting Novak, an instant connection blossomed between them. Davis and Novak took extraordinary measures to avoid the press and any potential controversies, often opting for quiet, intimate dinners together. In some instances, Davis would instruct a friend to drive him to Novak's place, where he would discreetly hide under a rug in the back seat of his car.
He would have to lie down in the back of the car under a blanket or a carpet that we sometimes had in the car to keep from being seen.
Despite all their efforts to keep their relationship discreet, Harry Cohn eventually discovered the clandestine affair when one of his informants leaked the news to him.
He put out a contract on Sammy not to him, but just to put out his other eye, break both his legs, and leave him in the desert.
In the world of Hollywood, it seems that nothing can remain truly hidden. Cohn's reaction was intense. He was furious not only because Novak was at the pinnacle of her career, but also because he had genuine affection for her. His emotions were a complex mix of anger and jealousy toward whatever was transpiring between Davis and Novak. In response, Cohn leveraged his connections, orchestrating a plan to have men beat Davis to a pulp. The brutal attack inflicted not only severe beatings on Davis, but also resulted in the gruesome act of removing one of his eyes with a stick. The reputation of Harry Cohn as a formidable figure was truly justified. Following the assault, Cohn presented Davis with an ultimatum: marry a colored girl within 24 hours or face dire consequences. In a desperate attempt to comply, Davis hastily flipped through his address book and randomly selected LaRae White, a black singer. White, an attractive vocalist from Houston, had already been married twice by the age of 23 and had a 6-year-old child at the time. The arrangement between Davis and White involved a marriage with the understanding that they would divorce by the end of the year. However, 6 months later, Davis paid White $25,000 to expedite their divorce.
Those days of a black man going out with a white movie star was death to her career.
Edward James Olmos. Celebrities often cherish their fans, but Edward here finds himself in the crosshairs of a dangerous group known as the Mexican Mafia. The origins of this threat trace back to a movie he starred in back in '92 called American Me. The film depicted the harsh realities of Chicano prison gangs, receiving less than favorable reviews. However, the real trouble began after its release when 2 individuals associated with the movie were tragically killed. Some speculated that these deaths were a warning directed at Olmos, linking them to the movie. The Mexican Mafia, also known as La M, took offense at the portrayal of their organization in the film. The movie blurred the line between fact and fiction, suggesting that one of their founding members was murdered by his own gang.
He said he went up to talk to Joe Morgan, and
Joe Morgan is the guy?
Yeah, Joe Morgan told me no, he didn't.
The Mexican Mafia's anger escalated, prompting Olmos to seek protection by attempting to obtain a concealed weapon permit. Unfortunately, his request was denied, as authorities believed he was not facing immediate danger. Despite this, Olmos and those close to him strongly believed that his life was at risk. During the filming of another movie, Roosters, Olmos reportedly received death threats, possibly stemming from rumors that he had terminated some employees, causing discontent. To address these concerns, Olmos took the precaution of hiring armed guards to ensure safety on the set. While Olmos currently remains secure, the uncertainty lingers, and he continues to live with the awareness that at any given moment, this gang could pose a threat to his well-being. The Beatles and the Kray twins. For those unfamiliar with the Kray twins, Ronnie and Reggie, they were notorious gangsters who wielded control over London's criminal underworld in the 1960s, often regarded as some of the most infamous British criminals since Jack the Ripper, before delving into a life of crime. The twins were amateur boxers who were discharged from the army due to their unruly behavior. Ronnie Kray identified as bisexual, while Reggie was heterosexual. One person on the internet also said, quote, Reggie Kray was most definitely not heterosexual when he was in HMP Wayland. He would only have very young-looking men in his cell while singing hymns and reading the Holy Bible. If any new 18-year-olds and they looked younger were sent to Wayland and was not on Reggie's spur, the next day the young lad would be moved on to Reggie's spur. This is a fact, not fiction. Ronnie grappled with paranoid schizophrenia, adding an intriguing dimension to their partnership. Now, what's the connection between these infamous gangsters and the Beatles? Although it may initially seem like they have nothing in common, their paths crossed in subtle and not so subtle ways. In the late 50s, the Kray brothers were associated with a Liverpool gangster named Jay Murray, someone likely connected to the Beatles and their manager as they gained fame in the north of England. When the Beatles ventured to London, they became regular gamblers at casinos owned by the Krays. The Beatles, with their rising fame, became a particularly tempting target for extortion.
Ronnie Kray was a very, very sick, psychopathical, schizophrenia, and manic depressive, all rolled in one word of his.
Not only were the Beatles the world's biggest musical act, but their adult tastes didn't quite align with their squeaky clean public image. Their manager, Brian Epstein, was not only a gambler, but also openly gay with a penchant for rough trade, making him vulnerable to blackmail. This information was all the Kray twins needed to gain leverage over the band. Despite their success, the Krays harbored a desire to manage a music group and set their sights on the Beatles.
I remember Ronnie saying to me one day, she said, if anybody ever touched Reggie, put a dynamite jacket on, I'd have the detonators ready, light them, and I'd walk right amongst them, and I'd blow the lot. And he meant it.
Ronnie Kray personally visited Brian Epstein to outline his plan. Epstein, however, explained that managing a band like the Beatles required significant time and expertise. Feeling belittled, Ronnie seized the opportunity to assert his seriousness. He randomly grabbed a man who happened to be in the room and forcefully rammed a 15-centimeter nail through his neck, demonstrating just how determined and dangerous he could be. Epstein reluctantly accepted, and for a brief period, the Kray twins managed the Beatles. However, the venture proved less smooth than anticipated. The twins eventually realized that handling a band of the Beatles' caliber required more effort than they were willing to invest. Instead, they shifted their focus to extorting significant sums of money from Epstein. Following their stint with the Beatles, the Krays attempted to exert control over a less high-profile band, the Kinks. While the details of how the Kray twins managed this are unclear, it is safe to assume that numerous shady dealings were involved in their attempt to take over the Kinks. Fats Waller, though less recognized today, was a renowned musician in his prime, drawing crowds to clubs, dance halls, and even gracing the screens of early Hollywood movies. One notable episode from his career took place during the Prohibition era when Waller was performing at Chicago's Sherman Hall. In a peculiar turn of events, someone pressed a pistol into Waller's back, ushering him into an idling limousine.
And one night they pulled up in a car, and the guys come in and told him, said, "Come on, Fats, we want to take you somewhere." He said, "What?" And they pulled a gun on him and told him, "Come on."
Transported to another location, he was placed in front of a piano and instructed to play. Unsure of the situation, Waller opted to comply, sensing it would increase his chances of survival. Across the room, Al Capone observed the scene. It appeared to be Capone's 27th birthday, and Waller was his unexpected birthday gift.
And Al Capone said, "Come on, play for us, Fats." And whatever they asked him to play a tune, they stuck $100 in his pocket.
Despite the initial fear, Capone treated Waller generously, ensuring a steady flow of whiskey and stuffing bills into his pockets for every requested tune. As the birthday celebration unfolded, lasting an astonishing 3 days, Waller gradually loosened up and began to enjoy the festivities. Despite being inebriated for most of the time, when he eventually returned home, his jacket pockets bulged with thousands of dollars in tips from this extraordinary and unexpected encounter.
When he left out of there, they kept him a day and a half. When he left out of there, all his pockets were full of $100 bills.
Frank Sinatra. Sinatra indeed faced persistent allegations throughout much of his life about his connections to the mafia. Despite his denials, these rumors persisted even after his death. One source of tension in his alleged associations was the claim that Frank Sinatra failed to provide a direct line to the Kennedy White House for his mob connections, leading to reported frustrations and even threats against him.
Sinatra was not in the mafia, no. I mean, I know Frank from the time I was a kid, at the Copacabana with my dad.
Whispers about Sinatra's ties to the mafia began early in his career, and his left-leaning political affiliations drew further attention from the FBI. The rumors were so pervasive that the character of Johnny Fontaine in The Godfather was reportedly based on Sinatra, a fact that Sinatra strongly disliked. In the 1960s, Sinatra began campaigning for John F. Kennedy. The men became close friends. His alleged mafia associations hoped that Sinatra's connection to the president would mean the government would not crack down on the mob. It didn't work out this way. While the Kennedy family appreciated Sinatra's help with the election, Attorney General Robert Kennedy was tough on the mafia.
The Copacabana with my dad, met him a couple of times there, met him again in the Italian American Civil Rights League. Look, he did favors.
By 1962, it was obvious that the Justice Department wouldn't go easy on the mob, and Sam Giancana was furious with the Kennedys and Frank Sinatra because he thought they owed him something, explained NPR reporter Alex Chadwick. Giancana and his associates met in a suburban Chicago restaurant in 1961 to discuss Sinatra. Per a 1981 article in the Wall Street Journal, the FBI had bugged the restaurant. Sinatra and Kennedy's friendship also crumbled because of the singer's alleged mob affiliation. The breaking point came when Sinatra had a private suite and helipad built at his home in anticipation of a visit by the president. Ultimately, though, Robert Kennedy believed it was best to steer clear of Sinatra.